Hello again, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King. Thanks for watching my video. And in this single issue spotlight, I want to take a close look at one of the very special issues in my collection. I have about 10,000 comics. So from time to time, I want to just spotlight a single issue rather than doing a huge, hour-long video that has a full run. I'll be doing some of those as well. But here in the single issue spotlights, I'm just doing one issue at a time. And today I have a very special comic that's a big key for a very, very, very tiny collecting fan base. And that is Jughead, Volume 2, number 89, the first appearance of Trula Twist. Now, I know not everyone is a massive Jughead fan, so if you're not, you probably have no idea what this is. And I should say up front that this has almost no monetary value. It's just it hasn't broken out. You can get it at the same price as any other issue of Jughead, which is say for $1 or $2 or whatever. However, for hardcore Jughead fans, the first appearance of Trula Twist is a very important issue. So, in order to explain Trula Twist, basically, she is Jughead's #1 frenemy. Now, historically, of course, in Archie comics, there's been the Big Five, and Reggie has sort of been everybody's rival, mainly Archie's, but, he's played a foil to Jughead as well. And for a period, one of Jughead's other rivals was Big Ethel, because, Jughead's not interested in dating girls, and Ethel was interested in Jughead, so he did his best to avoid her at all costs. Trula Twist, however, starting with this issue, becomes a major character in this Jughead series. She's sort of like a combination of Reggie and Ethel. She's like Jughead's #1 frenemy. They have this sort of weird relationship where they're sort of strangely fascinated with each other, but not exactly friends. The concept behind Trula is that she is basically a psychologist. Her mother is this famous psychologist, and so she's picked up a bunch of stuff, and she's studied Jughead so well that she can always predict exactly what she's doing. So normally in the Archie comics, Jughead sort of has a leg up on everybody. He's always just a little bit more clever and a little bit smarter than everybody in a way. He can sort of get one over on everybody when he wants to, but the one person he can never sort of do that with is Trula, because she understands him so well. Now, you can see here that it says introducing Trula Twist and the Just organization. The deep dive backstory behind this is that in this issue we learn that Trula has formed this organization called the Jughead Under Surveillance Team, where she's basically rallied all the girls in Riverdale, and she's convinced them that Jughead is a huge threat to all of them, because she's turning all of their boyfriends into lazy, good-for-nothing losers like Jughead himself, and they're only interested in hanging out with the other dudes and playing video games and eating snacks, and they're no longer interested in taking their girlfriends on dates. So she forms this organization where they have this master plan where they're going to take down Jughead to make sure that he doesn't infect the male population at Riverdale High. This concept is actually a classic Archie storyline. It originally the original version of this debuted way back in 1961 in Jughead Volume 1, number 79. And in that issue, the girls of Riverdale formed this group called UGAJ, United Girls Against Jughead, and it was basically the same premise. And there were UGAJ storylines that continued throughout the 1960s, and unusually for Archie comics, it actually was a storyline where when there'd be a new UGAJ story, it would actually reference the events of the previous one, even though those stories may have been 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. So it was one of the very few pieces of Archie comics in the 60s that had any kind of continuity. So when this came out, the writer Craig Boldman, who was taking over on Jughead, teamed up with artist Rex W. Lindsay, and they updated this with this new organization, Just, and they introduced Trula Twist. And again, this is issue 89. And they had just what, from in my opinion, is the best run on Jughead of all time. They continued writing and drawing this team of Craig Boldman and Rex W. Lindsay all the way until the end of this volume 2 with issue 214. So they had a really long run and some of the best stories in Jughead's history. I think the series is actually at its best right when it got canceled. And throughout their entire run, their decade-long plus run, Trula Twist was a main character as a sort of foil for Jughead. She continued appearing throughout the series. Now, once the series was canceled, and since, you know, Trula was sort of their character, and while she has made a few cameo appearances in other Archie titles since then, the main part of her run was in here. Now, I keep hoping they're going to bring her into Riverdale, because I think she's a great character and could really add an interesting dimension to the Jughead Betty relationship, to turn that into a triangle. I think it would be interesting to have a schemer like her, you know, sort of butt heads with Cheryl Blossom and that sort of thing. But basically, to put it in terms that some of you may understand better, is she's kind of like Sabretooth to Wolverine, where they're rivals and enemies a lot of the time, but their stories and their personalities are so intertwined that they sort of can't quit each other. And so I've always been a huge fan of Trula Twist. I got a full run of Jughead volume 2 here. I completed it a few years ago, and when I read through them, I just love the Trula Twist stories. I really like the character, and so this was sort of it's an easy issue to get. So I don't want to say it's a Grail book, because it's sort of like, you know, I didn't realize how cool it was until I read it. But there is a Grail involved with this, and that's the big reason why I'm doing this video. Is first of all just to show off this comic. As you can see, it's autographed by Rex W. Lindsay. I've never actually met Rex W. Lindsay, so how did I get an autographed copy? Well, he sent it to me when I purchased this from him. Yep, it's the original art for Jughead Volume 2, number 89, the first appearance of Trula Twist. So, again, this may not mean much to anybody who's not a hardcore Jughead fan, but for me, this was like a Grail to get this cover. It would be kind of like having something like, again, you know, the cover of Iron Fist 14, or the first appearance of Sabretooth, but even better because, of course, Jughead's on it. It's got her name. You know, it's clearly like being, you know, built up as a big deal. Again, this comic hasn't broken out in any way. There have been others with similar characters that have broken out. For instance, you know, Tony Topaz, her first appearance was in a Jughead double digest. I think it was issue 185. That's broken out. That's like a $20, $30, $40 comic now. And a big part of that is because she has become a recurring character on Riverdale. The character barely ever appears in the comics, and she appears on a lot of covers, but almost never in any actual stories. So in terms of the comics themselves, Trula is a much more important character to both Archie comics and specifically to Jughead mythology than Tony Topaz. The only thing is that she has not appeared on the TV show. If Trula ever does appear in the TV show, I think Jughead 89 is a book that could take off, specifically because the print runs for Archie books starting in the late 90s is very small. And so I think issue 89, I think in sales figures, it probably only sold about around 30,000 copies. Print run was probably higher because of newsstand distribution. But yeah, it's a great story. That storyline lasts for 3 issues, issues 89, 90, 91. And then there's 92, it doesn't have Trula Twist, but then they come back in 93 and 94 for another 2-parter that wraps up their initial story. So again, very unusual for Archie even at this time. There's a 5-part storyline revolving around this major new character. I do have some more original art related to that. So at some point, if you find this interesting, I'll do a whole video about my very small Archie original art collection. But that's it. I just wanted to spotlight this single issue, Jughead Volume 2, number 89, with the first appearance of Trula Twist, and my original art for the cover of Jughead number 89 by the great Rex W. Lindsay. I wish that this hadn't been canceled. It's such a great series. So, as always, I really appreciate you watching and listening, and I hope you learned something interesting. I had fun, looking at my comic and my original art, and I encourage anyone who has any interest in Archie or Jughead to seek out the issues by Craig Boldman and Rex W. Lindsay. They're really great. I would actually start with the last issues of the series, 200 through 214. Can't possibly go wrong with those. They're just all great. So I've got a like button, a bell button, a subscribe dongle here in the middle, and then there's videos on either side. So please feel free to look around, watch some more videos, subscribe if you like it, and let me know in the comments what you thought. If there's any other titles or comics or characters or genres you want me to take a look at. I do have a lot of comics here, a very broad collection, so I might have something of interest to you.